There's two things I'm gonna want to talk about today. There's no reason for me to record this video except for the fact that I feel like it. So, first thing is that sometimes it's just about waiting for your constraint to be solved and continuing to do the actions you're already doing. So, look, I oftentimes talk about the importance of solving your constraint and that 90% of your focus should go to just working on whatever your constraint is in business, right? And most people get that totally wrong. They work on everything except what actually brings the business forward, which I think is really interesting. But there's a very small percent of people, where they might be like me, where they're always working on their constraint, but they keep hearing that so often. So they ask themselves every day, hey, am I working on the right constraint? And then when you ask yourself that every day for 10 days in a row and you keep getting the same answer, you start to think, hey, am I really working on the constraint the right way of just waiting for this to be solved and continuing to do this, or is this taking too long? Should I change how I'm trying to solve the constraint? And that can sometimes lead with you. For example, let's say that you have a problem of sales. That might make it so that the first week you role play with the team, but you don't see a change in close rate. So you're like, oh, it's the offer's fault. You start changing the offer because you think the constraint is the close rate, and then nothing changes. So the third week, you're like, oh, I get it now. I get it. It's a marketing problem. We're not getting the right leads in the funnel. So you start changing the marketing. And then after like 4 days, you're like, wait, the cost went up. So you turn off the marketing and you start going to, I need to hire a new salesperson. I get why. So you start hiring a new salesperson. You find them, they perform even lower, and you're like, oh, that was the wrong person. Let me fire them. And then it's gone like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, and you've been at the same constraint for so long. Where if you would have taken the first idea, which was to just role play with your current team, you would have been able to double your close rate. But it wouldn't have happened in a week. It would have happened in maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 3 months, right? Probably about 2 to 3 weeks. If you would have gone with the second idea, then I think the second thing that I brought up was changing your offer. You could probably have changed your offer to something that worked. But if you didn't have sufficient sales, probably wouldn't have mattered anyways. But let's say that you were to change your offer. You would still have needed to change your offer and then give yourself a month to let the team adjust to it and then actually get enough data to see if that works. Let's say that you went with the third route of marketing and you said, okay, I'm gonna have to fix the marketing because we're getting in the wrong leads. Maybe that's the case, but you know how I mentioned that then the cost went up? Because what if the cost per lead went up and you never had time to see if the cost to acquire a customer went down because you just changed it so quickly when you saw the cost go up, right? And what if that new salesperson you did hire would have worked out, but you just gave him a week, and nobody's gonna be better than people who've been doing it for a long time with a weeks of training. So all four solutions could have worked, but none were gonna work if you were only gonna give each one a week. And that's so important to remind yourself of sometimes. Most people, they're not working on their constraint anyways. But if you are and you've been doing it for 5 days and your business hasn't grown, that metric hasn't changed, maybe you just need to remind yourself that you're 1 week in and it's usually gonna take a month to see results of your doing, right? A good example of this is we I started working on the close rate. That's why I'm bringing this up, and we did a lot of changes to increase our close ratio. The During August, and here's the interesting part. During August, we got not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not 10, not 20, but zero, not a single sale, because that's when we really started the sales machine, and we got appointments, but nobody closed. And then kept changing a bunch of things until I realized from my mentor, he's like, hey, don't change anything, just keep training the sales team. And then in September, I kept training the sales team. What happened in September? We got 9 clients, right? And that was a big win for us. And 9 clients is worth quite a bit for us. That's about $40,000 to $50,000 in added recurring revenue. So quite a big win there. And I realized how just I needed to stay patient. And I could have changed so many things, but just me staying patient was the reason that we then managed to scale. And if you're in that spot where you're like, things aren't going as fast as I feel like they should be going, number one, are you focusing on the constraint? Secondly, are you putting as much focus on the constraint that you should? Because I'm talking 5 hours a day of sales training with your team is possible, right? And then third, have you given it enough time of doing the first two? Have you focused on the constraint with brutal effort for enough time? And if you haven't, then that's probably your answer. Here's the second thing that I want to talk to you about. A lot of times people try to optimize when it's just a matter of doing more. If you get a 10x ROI on your ads, and every time you double ad spend, you go to a 8x ROI, and you don't want to double ad spend, you're doing business wrong. If you go from spending 10k and getting 100k back to spending 20 to get 160k back, that's still an ROI worth making every single fucking day. And I'll tell you why. Because your returns will go down when you scale, oftentimes, and you're never gonna have the perfect business. So you're not gonna wanna scale because you're gonna be like, I could improve my product, I could improve my sales, or I could do more, but then my ROI is gonna go down. But here's the caveat: you can only get to 100% close ratio. Hypothetically, you can never really reach 100 anyways. You can only get to 100% show rate. You can only get to 100% churn, or say retention, 0% churn. But there's no 100% marketing. Hypothetically, you can 10x, 100x, 1000x your marketing, and there's no way to do that with any of the back-end metrics like close rate. So sometimes it's just about how can we double our cold calling team? How can we double our ad spend? Right? But that should only be done when you have a LTGP to CAC ratio of 5:1 or more, in my opinion. Really depends on the company, but you need to first make sure that you have the mechanics in place, and then you should do it. And how I operationalize this is I make a spreadsheet with all the numbers that we're currently at, and I say and then I put out my hypothetical max. So for example, for us, brutally honest numbers, our average monthly retainer right now is like 3,500. Our closing rate right now is 25%. Our show up rate right now is 50%. Our churn rate is 10%, and our our net profit is 40%. So that's our numbers, and then I can perceive what the future is gonna look like when I reach my hypothetical max based on how much money I spend on ads, right, with all those numbers. So I can say, okay, right now our hypothetical max as a business, based on where we're currently at, is 400,000 a month. I'm never gonna scale past 400,000 a month unless I change something, right? And obviously I'm not happy with 400k a month. So then I can say, what's the one number that's easiest to change? Is it the price? Is it the churn rate? Is it the closing rate? Is it the show up rate? And then that's the thing you should focus on. And sometimes people will always try to optimize one number when there are other numbers that are easier. Like, is it easier to go from a 10% close? Let me put it this way. What's easier, going from 40% close rate to 44? Or changing your price from 10,000 to 11,000? It's probably going from 10 to 11,000 on your price, right? So often, and that gives disproportionate increases in profit, because if you increase your price by 10%, it has 100% gross profits. So oftentimes it's easier to scale some numbers that you don't look at as often. Anyways, that's some of the things that come to mind. And then here's another thing worth mentioning. When all numbers line up, then why don't you just double volume? That's the easiest way to double a business. Double the amount of appointments they're booking, double the amount of salespeople they have, double the amount of partner success managers, double the amount of appointment setters, whatever the business is. Just double the volume, double everything else, and the business will double in size. And if you can't double because of X reason, then X is your constraint, and just focus on solving X. Let's go. That's all I got for you today. Appreciate y'all. Goodbye. This was such a needed video for myself, because I'm reminding myself of these lessons. That's why I'm talking them out loud, because if I would have seen this video 4 months ago, I would have been doing more than double the profit and revenue I'm doing right now. So I wish I would have seen this video about 4 months ago. So if you're this one person who deserves to see this video right now, I hope that this helps. Goodbye. Take care.